Okay, so that's the Hiawatha 442 shell so far. Just sitting on the body, on the chassis right now. It needs some body work. I didn't use the plastic tube that I was originally going to use. What I used was clear, thin. This is actually a Lexan, and when you bend it, it springs back. So what I did was, you'll see these lines inside. What I did was, using a computer, I drew out the shape of the shell, a bunch of them, and I had the computer cut the Lexan. And how I got the measurements, I was lucky enough to find a PDF file from 1939 of the blueprints for this train. I downloaded it, I put it in the computer, I figured out the size, the scale, and whatnot. We'll just, for argument's sake, say something was 122 inches long. I brought it to use the scale calculator, figured out how big that 122 in real time is versus HO scale. I opened up the file, the PDF file of the blueprint, and I made an object align that was the length of the 122 inches, but I made it to the scale inches. We'll just, for argument's sake, say it was, I don't know, 4 inches, we'll just say. I don't remember what it was, but so that's how I sized the blueprint on the screen. And then I went and traced the front of the shell, the drawing, the architectural drawing. I took architectural drawing in school for 4 years, so I can read blueprints. So anyway, I just traced using a computer, created a file, and plotted everything out. A lot of this stuff here I did by eye, because this chassis, the wheels are, in real life, they would be 79 inches tall. The actual Hiawatha is, I believe, 85 inches. So you're talking about a 1/16 of an inch difference in actual wheel size, once you break it down. So I had to cheat in order for it to look right. Realistically, well, this train's going to go further down. I got a lot of grinding to do. But realistically, in real life, the driver would be in the shell, above the steps, above the skirts. So this train actually is going to be really smushed in there, so it's going to be more like that. The center of the driver is just going to be visible. This thing is going to be basically a low ride. It's going to be as low as it needs to be without the truck catching the ass end. So anyway, this is all plotted out of Lexan. The windows and everything, I did plot them. They were too small to snap the plastic, so I used a Dremel. I have to get in there with an X-Acto knife and straighten it out. It's all crazy glued together. I sanded it first. This here is Cintra, which is a soft PVC. I'll have to paint it with epoxy paint to harden it up. This is Lexan, the whole cone. And the bottom half of this is Lexan. This is all baking soda and super glue, crazy glue. It hardens like a rock. The drawback of that is shaping it and sanding it is a nightmare. So I'll bring it to work and I'll use a wet sand belt sander. Very carefully with a very high number grit, maybe 300 or 400 paper, or maybe even higher than that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you what the shell looks like inside. So you can see these ridges. I plotted those with the computer. They were solid. I cut them out once the shell was together because I needed room. So what you got is when you take a piece of Lexan and try to bend it, it acts like a spring. So all these ridges in here were straight across, and they were the shape of the front. And what I did was I started in the front, and I glued the center of it. I used super glue and baking soda to create like an epoxy. Then I did the next one right in the middle. And then once I did that, I went to the sides and I used crazy glue. I held it until it started to stick. And I held it in my hand and I crushed it really tight. Put more crazy glue in there and then sprinkled baking soda in there and crazy glue on top of it. And within 20 seconds, you can feel it get hot. And it's strong as hell, especially if you see it on the plastic. So I did a bunch of those. And unfortunately this is clear, so you have a hard time seeing it, but this piece here that goes all the way around was one piece. It was the front, round, all the way to the back, and it had braces in the middle to keep the strength so it wouldn't flop. So then like I said, I made the top half of the shell. I put all these ridges in there, glued them down. When they dried, I glued it to the top of this. And again, super glue and baking soda. Then once that was cured, I cut all the inside out. I gotta neaten it up. But you can see this brace right here. There was a bunch of them going all the way across, all the way down. There was a bunch. I chopped them all out though. Obviously I need the room for the engine, the motor. Now I'm going to use a motor, and it's not going to be in the cab. So this particular Rivarossi motor fits in the cab, but that's not where it's staying. I'm going to make my own drive shaft, and the motor is going to lay down here to here. Something like this. Something like that. So the motor is still going to be in the cab, but it's not going to take up the whole cab. So if I want to put big people in there and whatnot, if I didn't really want it in the cab, I would have cut this frame, flip-flopped it, put the transmission in the front, and had the motor sit in between the rear wheels, and between here. Now this frame here was a 4.62. You can see where this lump is. That's where the original driver was. I used a small drill bit, figured out where I wanted it to go. I drilled the hole. Unfortunately, I did a horrible job. The bit slipped and it oblonged one of the holes. So I had to use, it's metal tape, basically. It's a piece of metal with glue on it, and it's very thin. And I used it as a shim. You can actually see a piece of it in there. stop the wheel from rocking back and forth. I could take the frame apart and tin it with solder, but solder is soft and it'll just wear down again. As you can see from the last video, I had these rods were all mangled because they were the wrong size and I needed to get the right size so it was easy to tweak them by bending. Well, I took them apart and resoldered them today. Flatten them back out. I gotta clean that up, but I'm gonna spray these silver anyway, so I'm not worried about it. I removed half the valve gear, got rid of all this crap. I don't care what it looks like, it's gonna be hidden in the frame. You're only gonna see this piece. The pistons, I chopped and shaved and pulled them in so they'll fit in the shell, because the shell can only be so big. I mean, I could have completely went out of scale, but it's width about it's within the 1/16 of an inch of the actual size, and I believe I'm within 1/8 of an inch of the length of the train as far as scale goes, and the same with the height. So there again, I used super glue and baking soda. I left the hole in the middle because I am going to fasten a piece inside here from the original frame, the original Rivarossi, where the screw is. I'm also going to mount back piece in the back for this whole thing to bolt in once I get the height right. Now, one issue that I could have is the weight needs to be from here to here. It can't be in the front because it'll lift the ass of the train up. It's got to be even because I don't have that third set of drivers to hold this train. So I'm going to use lead and a lot of it. Because when you go to pull something, if you don't have the weight right, the front end's going to come up off the ground. And if there's too much front, too much weight, the back end will come up. So that ought to be a new trick. I think that's it. I did lose a set of contacts because I'm not using, you can see the third set right there. What I am going to do is I'm going to put a brass wiper right on this wheel, like I did on my T1 that I built, which is behind me. I'm still waiting for the correct paint so I can repaint it dark green. Yeah, so anyway, it'll still have pickups on the two front wheels in that one. I could always do an extra set of pickup in the tender if I wanted to. I don't think it's really necessary. I think I'm just going to put a brass wiper on that and fasten it to this piece here. Probably grind that down and solder a brass piece on there. A wiper. Not ideal, but it will work. So that's that. Like I said, I chopped all this off. I cut the center of it. I moved them in. I still got to clean up all that stuff. On the inside here, I got to grind. There's 2 layers of plastic to give it strength. I got to take a section of that out so it doesn't hit the valve train, the valve gears, rods or whatever they are. So basically it sits like that. Obviously it's crooked because I'm not lining it up. But this is what the nose looks like. It still needs to be shaped. This was done in sections. You can see there's a seam right there where my pinky finger is. It's glued and then baking soda in the back. And then I sanded it down, feather the edge. I will keep working on that. I'm probably going to spray it with some thick body filler primer after I wet sand it to fill the rest of the grooves. I'm not going to be too anal about this thing. The only thing that I really care about is how the roof looks. because the roof is going to be black, and black shows everything. And I believe this sides will be orange and antique white. So anyway, there you have it. The shell's made. This is completely scratch built. This piece here is from the Union Pacific. I don't know what they call it. It runs behind a diesel. I used parts off of that plastic to build the T1, so I figured I'd use this to get the shape of the roof, because that's basically the shape of the roof. This piece here could have been up a little bit higher. You know, there's not that much of a what am I looking for? Not enough of a rise, I don't believe. I couldn't, well, once I realized it wasn't up too high, I had already glued this down. So I'm not that picky. So anyway, feel free to comment. Let me know what you think. I still don't know how I'm going to do the light and the grills off this. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But anyway, that's it so far. Hopefully the next time you see this thing, it'll be painted flat black. And once I paint it, and then I start sanding it, I'll know where the highs and lows are, so I can, you know, give it a little body work. But anyway, it took, started this project yesterday, last night, so I got this far in one day. Okay, you have any questions or any comments or any ideas or any suggestions, please post them in the comments, and I'll read them and get back to you. Thank you.